Grass and grasses seems to be a problem all over the place in drawing, particularly drawing with ink. I have several videos on drawing grasses as in lawn grass, so you can find those on my Drawing Trees playlist if you're interested. But what about when we have a slightly more out of control grass effect? I thought this was a great scene for exploring drawing possibilities, drawing directly freehand in ink for grasses. This is an old railway station in a section of the railway line that is no longer used in country New South Wales. And so there is on the other side of the platform a space in the cutting where the railway line went through, and then we see the embankment on the other side as the railway line used to loop around the side of this hill. So at the moment you're watching me draw this in double time, double speed. Towards the end, when there's a lot of hatching with some of the foliage, we double that just to keep the video to a reasonable time length. But at any point, of course, you can reduce the speed of what you're watching by using the cog icon and setting it to half video speed. At this point, that will bring you down to actual speed. So I'm using a 0.1mm pen. Now, the thing with grass is that we don't want to overdraw it, and we don't want to get trapped into drawing every frond of grass, and we don't want to start just randomly drawing long strokes on the paper where there is grass. What we want to do is to capture the effect of the grass. And if we look at this scene, sometimes we can see the grass primarily through the actual darkness of the grass or shadows the grass is casting. Sometimes we see it more by what's behind it, particularly if we look up at that row of shrubs and bushes behind the old railway station. We actually see the grasses in front more by the darkness of both the dark green and the shadows the bushes are casting. And so when we particularly see it this second way, we want to draw it that second way, because we don't want lots of ink from drawing lines that will create a lot of black on the paper that we don't see in our reference, because then we're going to create an effect that's different from what we see. And if I'm trying to draw a scene with grasses, and if you're watching my channel, I'm presuming, of course, that you want to draw in a somewhat realistic style to capture a sense of reality, if not the exactness of it, in your drawing, then we don't want to be putting ink, making areas very black and very attention-grabbing in a way that isn't there in real life. In this scene, the darkest area are the windows on each side of the projecting window. Those recessed, well, it's not actually recessed, but they're under an awning. They're the same, those windows are at the same level as the windows on each end of the building. But the projection of the covering, of the roof covering, which I just realized I didn't do the roofs of those two eyes as I thought of them. To me, it's looking quite a lot like an insect looking straight at us at the moment. But never mind. Now, you'll notice that a lot of what I do with grasses is to establish some dotted lines to help me indicate where the edge of that grass is going to be. What I certainly don't want to do is draw some sort of continuous line. No matter how wiggly I want to make it, that's not going to capture the reality of this really quite feathered edging. Instead, I'm going to do what you can see me doing here. Notice with this tree, I don't draw it all completely from bottom up. I mostly draw lines from top downwards, and then I simply join them together. And when I do the very finest branches, twigs on top, I do those coming down, and I don't try and join them up with everything else. I'm trying to create the effect, not the exactness. And now I can draw that wing of the railway station behind that tree, and we get the sense that the tree's in front. I probably could have darkened that tree a bit more actually. I'm just looking at my drawing, finished drawing now that's next to me. And yes, I probably could have done that. And I also could have not sloped the roof down quite so much. Sometimes I end up not sitting square on to my drawing paper. Just depends where one of my lights ends up being situated. And it does actually throw off the horizontal lines being easily horizontal. Never mind, that's my issue. So now you see me with these dotted lines. So again, I'm going double speed, which means I'm actually doing these quite quickly. And now I'm establishing that line at the back that all of those green trees come down to. This is going to be that edging. So I'm not being overly heavy with it because it's going to basically be shown through as a silhouette. And there's also a bush here on the left-hand side. So this will be my first, if you like, experimentation with a bush. And as well as being a bit darker, because it is a darker colour than the grasses, I also want to try and convey with these edges that I'm doing now, little branches with little bauble type ink marks on them or around them to give a sense of these are little clusters of leaves or maybe even individual leaves. But basically I just want this to be saying this is not grass. These are not grasses, this section. This is something that's more substantial than grass. And now I come through with some hatching just to get that darker value that we have where we have the embankment and there isn't grass particularly, or certainly no long grass growing on it. It is a slightly darker value, which I'm also going to exaggerate a bit, and I particularly do that at the end, just to help the railway cottage stand out more and come towards us a little bit. Please hit the like button if you're finding this helpful, and if you can see the hype button there, well, I'd always appreciate a hype. So now I'm continuing to work on what's happening behind, and I'm going to add a little more line work here, hatching to just create a little bit of a darker value up behind the roof line to help it stand out more. In terms of value, it's the lightest value that we have, I'm pretty sure, in this scene. If we were to take out all the color, desaturate to black and white, that's what we'd see. And so I want it to be similarly white feeling in my drawing. And I can't make it any more white than the paper is, so if I make what's around it look a little less white, that's going to have that same effect. And so now, just as I explored with that shrub to the middle left, I'm now working at these ones to the back and across. I'm not overly concerned about lining things up too exactly with the reference for this sort of thing. So you're still watching this at double speed, but we will very shortly go to a lot faster. And so while this is actually drawing trees, it's not unlike drawing the grasses at this distance for this sort of tree. We don't want to draw these bushes in too much detail, or else they'll feel closer, and they're very much in the distance. This is actually zoomed from quite a long way away, this whole scene. There was a lot more grass in the foreground, and I was a long way away from the railway station when I took this photo. So those bushes behind are actually further back than we would think from this photo. So everything is very compressed. So having worked on that a bit, I now come down the front to work on the values down here. There are a couple of closer things that we can see, that we can feel, a few things that aren't grasses, probably what I call woody weeds, just weedy things that have a little bit of stem to them. And they've got a greener leaf, which just basically comes out as a bit of a silhouette value. And now I jump away from that and go back to behind. And we can see the base of a tree, of a double branched or even a little bit more complex than that gum tree. Just the very base of the trunk. And again, I mustn't overdraw that because I want it to feel like it's right in the distance. I don't want it to feel that it's closer than the house. At the very end, I'll actually strengthen quite a few of the house, the railway station building lines, to let it stand a little separate from all the marks. But one of the great things about grassy scenes such as this is the contrast between, now I'm on double times double now, so this is 4 times. One of the wonderful things is the contrast between the smooth lines and the smooth areas that the actual building gives us, and the grasses and the effect of the grasses. But look in the end how little actual grass I draw to create the feel of grass everywhere except basically where the station is. And it really comes down as much to restraint as anything else, and particularly drawing directly in ink, we obviously can't erase any marks once they're there. So we really have to learn to show restraint. But I'll post this photo reference on my channel community page, and you'll be able to have a go using it as an exercise to explore drawing grasses, particularly when they're not cut grass, but this sort of long grass that we end up often coming across in landscape type scenes, whether there is a old railway station or any architecture or not. So I think it's very helpful to work out how we can each find marks to create the effect without trying to overdraw by drawing too much grass. We don't want to draw long stems of grasses. We want to capture how all the grass bunched together looks under these conditions at the particular distance we see them at and under the light that we see them at. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this interesting. I've had this scene for a while to draw and I thought this was a great chance to do it. So I hope you give it a go, but in the end, whatever you draw, however it turns out, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.